One community unified across time and space, gathering for these Sunday platforms to affirm our values and commit to a better world. So I want to welcome those of you who are here in the hall, those who are watching now on Zoom, and those who are catching the recording later. If you are on Zoom, please check the chat for a welcome and various tips from Paul Baker, today's Zoom chat usher. If you're here in the hall and would like an assistive listening device, please ask the sound team at the back. A special welcome to visitors today. We'd love to get to know you and answer any questions you have. So to get on our email list, you can fill out the connection form at tiny.cc/wesconnects or send an email to membership@ethicalsociety.org. And if you're here in person, we invite you to stop by the welcome table after platform or just chat up anyone with a white name tag. I'll now check in on the Zoom chat to see who's attending remotely this morning and give us a chance to connect and share together. Thank you, Paul, for starting right away with the welcomes to everyone. We have Dorothy, one of our many Lauras, and Rose all saying good morning, and Eric saying is bringing us more greetings. So great, we'll check back during the sharing time later to hear from all of our audiences. Right now, opening words this morning are from the Talmud. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justice now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Today's musicians are the WES Chorus and Band, and sharing our opening music.
Many of you will know this song. Please feel free to join us. We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we always will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we always will.
Thank you. Each week, we read our statement of purpose as a reminder of our shared values. If you are interested in taking a turn to read the statement of purpose, you can sign up at tiny.cc/readsop. You can read it here in person or make a recording that will be included in a future platform. So today I'd like to welcome up Joe London, a member of WES Chorus, the Safe Congregations team, and Lifelong Learning team.
Good morning, everyone. The Washington Ethical Society is a humanistic congregation that affirms the worth of every person. We strive through our relationships to elicit the best in the human spirit. With faith in human goodness, we appreciate each person's unique capacities. We joyfully celebrate together and support each other through life. We nurture a sense of reverence and responsibility for each other and the earth. We warmly invite you to join our community of children and adults as we work for a world where love and justice cross all borders.
Thank you, Joan. Joe, as Joe lights our community candle, I invite everyone to join in our candle lighting words. May we rekindle within us the warmth of compassion, the light of understanding, and the fire of commitment to build a brighter future for all. Let us enter now into the centering time of our platform. I will be ringing the chime and then inviting Hugh up to provide meditation, and then we'll have our meditation song. So each week we ring this chime in solidarity with people around the world. Today I am particularly mindful of everyone mourning a loved one, whether recent or long time past. As we listen to the chime, let us remember our connection to each other and the world around us. Let us open our hearts to compassion for those who suffer. And let us commit ourselves to the work that calls for our love.
I invite you here and at home, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes or lower them to a gentle gaze. And I invite you to just think for a moment of that little seed, that little yearning, that hunger inside you that wants to make the world a better place. Breathe deep to the belly and imagine that hunger, that yearning, and see it as a small flame inside you, a candle deep within you. Breathe deep and imagine the warmth and the glow. Feel that warmth of a flame seeking goodness. Even though all around is dark, let the warmth calm you, sustain you. Imagine that small flame grows brighter and the warmth spreads more fully through your chest, out to your limbs, and now imagine all around you small points of light of all the other candles in this community, in your neighborhood, in the world, trying to light the way towards goodness. Thank you.
Today's reading is from Jane Addams' The Subjective Necessity for Social Settlements. Nothing so deadens the sympathies and shrivels the power of enjoyment as the persistent keeping away from the great opportunities for helpfulness and a continual ignoring of the starvation struggle that makes up the life of at least half the race. To shut oneself away from that half of the race life is to shut oneself away from the most vital part of it. It is to live out but half the humanity to which we have been born heir and to use but half our faculties. We have all had longings for a fuller life, which should include the use of these faculties. Our platform speaker today is Hugh Taft-Morales, leader of the Baltimore Ethical Society and Philadelphia Ethical Society, and also a longtime member here at the Washington Ethical Society. So we're excited to welcome back Hugh.
Thank you. Thanks to KC for their suggestion that we swap locations. They are speaking at Baltimore, so I could be here. Thank you to the tech crew, to Emily, to musicians, to everybody, the greeting team for making this day possible. I just want to mention that if you want a copy of my talk, you can email hughtm@gmail.com, or I can give you my card and send it to you. And there's a little sheet down there, 15 copies, that give a little bit of an outline of some of the things I'm talking about today. So I want to talk about a challenge that you all know very well, and that is there are so many good deeds to do and we have so little time. It's not easy to figure out how best to make the world a little bit more ethical, and that's true for me personally and in my role as an ethical culture leader. But in that role, I try to urge people to consider ethical culture's history, our philosophy, our heritage, which is the theme for this month. When I do this, though, I have a number of pitfalls I want to try to put on the table so I can try to avoid them. And the first is pretty obvious, and that is that this question about how to live a more ethical life is deeply personal. And I don't know many of you. So I urge you to take what I have as some general advice and pick and choose what seems to work when you decide how to devote your time and resources to trying to make the world a little better. A second pitfall, equally as obvious, is that the wisdom of our ethical culture tradition we sometimes think is timeless. Now, while there are certain elements of our tradition that endure and serve us well today, we have to critique all of that through a contemporary lens. So a small example, for example, I'm going to be giving a number of quotes today, and I've just reworked the language to make it a little bit more inclusive. I think we have to do that about all of our heritage. A third pitfall is one that involves the conceptual distinction between means and ends that I'll talk about today, because I believe that the three ideals or ends that I'm going to be talking about and the three means or tools towards getting there often overlap. It's not a clear distinction. And related to that, another pitfall is I want to avoid the glorification of conceptual categories, which, as a philosophy teacher, I do way too much. When I was training to be an ethical culture leader, I read a quote by S. Burns Weston, who was the leader in Philadelphia from 1903 to 1925. And he wrote, "I believe in the supremacy of ethics in religion. I believe there is nothing more sacred, more truly religious than wholehearted devotion to that which one holds to be of supremest worth, one's ethical ideals." Now, I'm attracted to a lot of that Weston says, but I care more about relationships and people than ideals. So it's important, I believe, that we don't worship ideals as if they were Plato's forms floating in some other world, but that actually ideals only mean anything when they are expressed in deeds. What matters is what we do. So enough of the caveats and pitfalls. The three ideals or ends that I'm going to explore are inherent worth, justice, and relationships. And the three tools or means that I'm going to suggest we take into consideration are pragmatic cooperation, reason, and sustainability. So I'm urging us to work inclusively, rationally, and sustainably to honor worth, build justice, and grow ethical relationships. That's where I'm ending up, so you know the end point. So I'm going to go deeper into these ends to start. What does it mean to honor inherent worth of every person? I don't mean you have to believe in the inherent worth of every person. I'm saying that we should commit to treating every person as if they are of worth. Because it's easy to proclaim the worth of everyone, but some folks that we meet make it very hard to maintain this belief. I mean, in the extreme, if I were to meet somebody openly expressing malice, greed, and selfishness, and who is guilty of crimes without remorse, I might feel that they don't have worth. I'm not proud of that, but I still hope I would try to treat them as being of worth. That's so extreme, some people think. I agree. It is. It's extreme to try to treat every person as unique, irreplaceable, and deserving of respect. But we try. It's how we demonstrate our humanist faith. Felix Adler said, "This is how we worship." Though the word feels a little too traditionally religious, so Adler suggested a different term. Do you know what it is? Have you heard it here? It's been said here by Don Montaigne, worthship. worthship. It's a bit too awkward of a term for me, but I like what he was getting at. Now, this extreme commitment does not mean that we allow other people to walk all over us. We should worthship ourselves too. We should treat ourselves as being of inherent worth, so our commitment to honor worth of others doesn't justify our own debasement or victimization. In fact, I think we can honor inherent worth by acting with force to stop others from causing harm. Of course, our commitment implies that we try to use force in a way that does not dehumanize others. If we act to restrain or even incarcerate others, we should do so humanely, expressing respect for their worth, despite their grievous behavior. It's easy to show worth towards people who you love and like and get along with. You remember Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber? Well, back in 2015, his brother, David Kaczynski, spoke at the 2015 American Ethical Union meeting, I think it was 2015 in Connecticut. Now, Ted Kaczynski mailed bombs to people, caused horrible grief and suffering during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And David described why he helped authorities capture his brother. You can't turn your back on your brother, but you can't turn away if someone you love is harming others. He wanted to prevent his brother from harming others and from harming himself. So David's cooperation helped Ted avoid the death penalty. David hoped that if Ted was in prison, quote, the goodness in him could somehow be nurtured. I think my brother is a sick person, not an evil person. I think he has a capacity for good. So it is that capacity that we commit to honor in ethical culture. To maximize that capacity in the world, that potential, it's useful to determine where human potential is least realized. Where can we have the most effect of releasing or growing that potential? And one good answer is that I think we can have the biggest impact by empowering children, especially those who are mired in deep poverty or suffering in other ways. It's why Adler created the Working Men's School, some of the first kindergartens, youth training programs. He followed the footsteps of his father and grandfather, who founded and helped run the Hebrew Orphan Asylum that began in New York in 1859. And as one young historian, Esther Lifshitz, explains, Adler saw children as more malleable than adults. She explained that Adler thought that they are, quote, better candidates for reconstruction of society's values that Adler intended through education. Along with a man named Alfred Wolf, who was a friend and supporter of Adler, they wandered through the poor communities, distributing flyers, urging people to send their children to the ethical culture kindergarten. Began in 1878. And that was part of a strategic decision. Adler knew that by helping children from marginalized populations in particular get educations and jobs and healthcare and housing, they would be best empowered and thus able to empower others. Starving people sometimes have to be given a fish, but in the long run, teaching them to fish gives them the power. That's related to a second end that I'm going to promote, and that is of justice. I hope that we choose deeds that bends civilization towards justice. Now that's a broad statement, a bold goal, but ethical culture is bold. Since 1876, we've been working for a radically different society where people come before profits. Sam Pizzagatti, who will be at the AU All Society platform next Sunday, and I'm hosting him, I got to meet him a couple of weeks ago, wrote a book in 2012 called The Rich Don't Always Win. Aspirational, perhaps, I don't know. He wrote about how Felix Adler advocated for a radically more egalitarian wealth distribution. Now, Where we disagree, I think, even in this room, is over the degree and pace of that change. While extreme in vision, Adler was skeptical of extreme tactics. He embraced moderate means, worked within the system, reached out to all players, and encouraged democratic change. He rejected violence. That appeals to me. I tend to be moderate, but I admit that I have doubts. Despite the progress we've made, money still rules. Corporate forces and greed have shown a remarkable ability to co-opt one progressive campaign after the other. People often suffer when the grassroots movements become corporate slogans. So in clarifying what justice means today, I think we have to talk more candidly about power. Not only power that's distributed through society at large, but in our workplaces or in our ethical societies or in our homes. And that was a lesson that I was taught by my own children right here in the Ethical Society's Coming of Age program. Because it's very easy to be convinced of one's righteousness regarding parenting or the ideal of justice in society while still carrying forward patriarchal attitudes. And those limit justice. So this lesson that was taught to me helped me better appreciate that unequal power dynamics in my own home. So I know that that blindness can extend to society in general. So we have a long way to go before we can reach consensus in the United States or in ethical culture as how hard we push towards the ideal of justice. But I hope we maintain a radically different view of the way the world can be and look for more creative and effective ways to get there. And that's wrapped up in the third ideal or end that I'm going to promote, and that is of relationships. I hope we develop personal and organizational relationships that are grounded in ethics and respect and mutuality. And it is very challenging and very important. But when someone asks for help, I try to listen to their words and their body language to try to understand them and their situation. And at times, I may not listen carefully enough. Maybe I'm having a bad day, not proud of it. But other times, the situation's so urgent. When somebody's bleeding, you have to stop the bleeding before having a more in-depth conversation. But as a general rule, when responding to calls for help, we need to do a better job of allowing those in charge to be directed by those in need. You have to flip the script. Those in need must be in charge. That's true personally and systemically. The industrial nonprofit complex often doles out resources according to the opinions of wealthy donors or privileged policymakers. I think that more effective long-term solutions will arise when we develop dialogues of respect and equality between those with power and those without power. And we have to do better at cooperating, developing the goals and strategies. Ethics requires a two-way street. And this is at the heart of community capacity building, a term that I learned in the Ethical Society's relationship with town in El Salvador. But it has roots in ethical cultures past, too. Jane Addams, she was a frequent lecturer at ethical societies, she began her settlement house work inspired by ideals tinged with patriarchy. But as she got to know those people in the slums of Chicago, she changed from a uplift the unfortunate attitude to one of greater mutuality. As she got to know the people near her Halsted Street headquarters, she developed greater appreciation for what she called the reciprocity of relationships. It's not enough for the privileged to dole out resources. They must cooperate in the reconstruction of civilization. In building towards that good, we're in this together. The leader, John Lovejoy Elliott, saw this relational factor as our form of communion. He wrote, The churches celebrate Holy Communion as their most sacred symbol of the relation of God with people. The ethical religion bases itself on another kind of Holy Communion, that of person with person, and endeavors to express this sense of the ultimate sacredness of daily living and in the work of the world. So in ethical culture, social reform is about community, not charity. This reciprocal relationship assumes a democracy in which, quote, this is again Eliot's words, there is no superiors and inferiors, but a basic interdependence that equalized all. This is not noblesse oblige, or as Esther Lifshitz puts it in her paper, not a condescending attitude or a manipulative activity, but the demands of a democracy. And that awareness inspires activists of a younger generation. And I'm seeing that in society at large and in ethical culture. Alfred Martin, another ethical culture leader, said that ethical culture strives for the formation of right relationships between personalities, end quote. He wrote, a person is, quote, most entitled to be called ethically minded who believes and acts on the belief that nothing exceeds in importance the establishment of right personal relations, as between spouse and spouse, parents and children, the social classes, nation and nation. The creating of right relations is valued above all else because such spiritual activity is the very highest kind in which a human being can engage. The supreme good of life is to be found in the act of creating harmonious relations. So I wonder if as you meet people today, you see that as a spiritual activity. Maybe you don't like the word, but is it important? Tomorrow, at work, in your home, in the neighborhood, are you looking at those connections as something profoundly special? Now, as I said, the ends and the means blur together, and that's most clear when discussing the ideal of ethical relationships. So I'm going to get into the means now that I'm going to suggest we think about when working towards radical ends. And these means include dedication to pragmatic cooperation, reason, and sustainability. So let me explain a little bit more. Pragmatic conviction, to work with others where we agree. There is a lot of suffering in the world, but folks, like most of us with privilege, get stuck in planning. Ever happened to you? Too often we don't act to ease the suffering around us because we're distracted by prioritizing. Our differences become our handicap. That's something that Susan Jacoby explains in her book, The Great Agnostic, about the free thought thinker Robert Ingersoll. Ingersoll created broad coalitions for building common good. Jacoby wrote, Ingersoll didn't agree with the liberal religionists any more than he did with fundamentalists, but he believed in alliances on the issues that liberal religious people agreed with him on. So Armstrong urges humanists, freethinkers, and atheists to consider this more deeply. This is what Amidar did when he spoke at that Connecticut AAU assembly. Amidar founded idealize.org, which has over 100,000 nonprofits listed to guide people towards helping them. And he explained that too often well-meaning progressive communities like ours waste hours and hours of time hammering out their shared priorities. We debate over the list of causes we want to commit our resources to, and the more we all fight for our favorites and add all the various things on the board, and people agree less and less on the list, and when we're unable to garner consensus, little ends up getting done, and people leave in frustration. Now, maybe this shouldn't surprise us in a community that prizes the uniqueness of every person. Of course, we're going to be pulled in different directions towards doing good in the world. We're fueled by different activities, and we need to work with that reality. Dar recommends that rather than strive for consensus, we should accept that we won't agree on each and every public statement. So let's work together where we do agree. You can always work on your own goals and projects independently, and maybe others will join you. We don't have to squash individual initiative. Our projects need not compete. They can move forward in parallel. Weston advises, it is an old saying that there are many paths to heaven. There are in truth many paths to right living, many roads leading towards the kingdom of heaven on earth. Ethical religion offers its way to such a goal. To follow it does not require committing oneself to or against any theological view. The one essential thing is ethical purpose. That is the very core of ethical religion. The whole spirit of the movement is focused on the aim and the way of life, regardless of the various speculative views which its leaders and members may hold. We don't have to agree on everything. Adler emphasized that it mattered very little what a person believed or disbelieved as long as they, quote, be one with us where there is nothing to divide in action. Diversity in creed, diversity in creed, unanimity in deed. This is the practical religion from which none dissents. That is the common ground where we will all grasp hands as siblings united in our common cause. But I want to add that I don't think we need unanimity about what deeds we do. We need to agree to work together where we do agree, because we do agree on enough where we could work together until our very last breaths, don't we? So another means or tool that I want us to consider is in choosing ethical action projects, let's not violate reason or ignore evidence. Perhaps historically humanism has over-relied on reason or undervalued the non-rational human strengths that we all have. Reason does not answer all of life's questions. Questions about love or beauty or even ethics. There's lots of areas of human life that involve more than reason: empathy, music, art, creativity, imagination. But nevertheless, when seeking agreement on group actions, we need to seek evidence and think logically. We can pay attention to gut instinct, but in group work, reason should examine emotion and intuition. We need more clear thinking in this world, not less. It's one reason why we support the separation of church and state. Education and public policy should not ignore evidence, history. We must work with observable, verifiable, and public facts more than personal revelation, religious revelation, or subjective experience. It's part of our historic connection in ethical culture to pragmatism. We care about what works for everyone. Finally, and most importantly, in deciding to build a more ethical world, we need to choose means that we can sustain. And this means that we have to choose means that fuel us more than drain us, both our communities and our individual spirits. Enthusiasm fuels ethical action, so projects should generate joy, even those doing them. It's counterproductive if ethical actions drain people so much that they burn out, give up, and retreat into self-centeredness. And this happens way too much in life and in ethical culture. It's a fundamental challenge for ethical culture and for the American Ethical Union today. It challenges me. I find it hard to sustain communities. And this admission is really sort of part of an apology to those who have left ethical culture because they felt our processes did not bring out their best. Instead, it wore them down and bummed them out. Ethical culture should be a positive force in people's lives. And our tradition doesn't glorify suffering as way too many religions do and way too many righteous activist communities do. Of course, we're going to suffer sometimes when trying to do good. And it can challenge us physically and emotionally. Having your eyes and hearts open is difficult. But if doing good is to be sustainable, it needs to add energy to our lives. It must nourish our conviction and feed our spirits. I mean, that's what we want for our children, right? We don't want them to help in ways that leads to martyrdom. In my very first chapel talk at an Episcopal school where I started my teaching career, I explained that I didn't want to encourage any of the 8th graders attending to follow Jesus to the cross. I wanted each and every student to commit to helping others and to living a flourishing, rewarding life. There are a lot of devils in the details, so to speak, I know. But I believed then and I believe now that a good life is an ethical life. When Maureen and I came to the Washington Ethical Society, we sought support to help our family live ethical and rewarding lives. We sought ethical energy that lifted us up while nurturing our dreams for a better world and helping us take concrete steps. Adler, in An Ethical Philosophy of Life, speaks of ethical energy. He says, things that transpire in the inner life of human beings, far more marvelous than the chemical processes or the flux of electric waves, did we but attend to them. There is in particular one kind of energy to which the quality of worth may well attach. It is unlike the physical forces. It is not a transformed mode of mechanical energy. It is sui generis, underivative, unique. It is synonymous with the highest freedom. It is power raised to the nth degree. It is ethical energy. To release it in oneself is to achieve unbounded expansion. Now, this kind of ethical energy, when shared in the world with compassion and reason, can multiply and spread. Adler wrote of it that it was like a, quote, ray of light which has the effect of kindling other rays, unlike but complementary to itself. Each ethical unit, each member of the infinite universe is to be regarded as a center from which such a ray emanates, touching other centers and awakening there the light intrinsic in them. There is greatness in that calling. John Lovejoy Elliott said, when speaking of community workers, but it can really apply to anybody who volunteers in ethical culture or the AAU or the UUA or anywhere for that matter, he says, community workers representing charitable and philanthropic enterprises are conscientious and hardworking people. But rarely does one find that their faces and words and actions carry with them the sense of the greatness of their calling. It is indeed a difficult thing to deal with poverty and crime and sickness and not become infected with depression. If all people are to have an equal chance, not little but great changes will have to take place. And it is in this direction that the social work and social reform must always tend. The true object of social reform has been stated by Dr. Adler. This is Eliot speaking. Social reform is the reformation of all social institutions in such a way that they may become successive phases through which the individual shall advance towards the acquisition of an ethical personality. So it's about the world. It's about each one of us. This is challenging. It's a grand goal. It requires that we direct our energies well. We have so little time, and there's so many good deeds to do. So while we prioritize how to express our commitments, I hope we honor inherent worth, build justice, and grow ethical relationships. And I hope we do so by nurturing pragmatic cooperation, using reason and evidence, and sustaining commitment through a fulfilling and a joyous life. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. In a few minutes, we will have our community sharing time when you can either write in the Zoom chat or come up in person to our microphone here about what resonated with you in this platform. While we listen to today's musical response, you might prepare by reflecting on a personal experience or an activity at WES that the platform brings to mind.
He died in your fields and your factories. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. With an old coat hanger in a room somewhere. Here's an electric chair. How great responsibility. We guardians of our liberty. Till tyrants bow, eagles free. Rest is mighty free. Oh, future in your eyes, to a more perfect union we aspire. Voices from the fire. In the future in your eyes, to a more perfect union we aspire. The voices from the
This is the time when we add our own voices to the morning, sharing or reflecting on our platform and what resonates with our personal experiences. For online participants, I invite you to share in the Zoom chat And we'll be watching that. And you can, those watching later, you can put into the comments of the video here in person. I see we're already got a line started. Lovely. I know there is a lot to talk about, so I also want to remind folks that we want to hear from everyone. So we're going to keep our thoughts brief, but also welcome to share our names and pronouns. One chat so far. Laura shares, I love the idea of everyone having their own ray of light that can touch others' rays of light. And we can go ahead.
Hello, Julie Grimes, she, her. I really enjoyed you talking about the fact that we can do sort of parallel play in our good deeds. I sort of made a joke a few months ago that like one of the things that really breaks down progressive movements is people go, you know, the good that you're doing is not the same as the good that I'm doing, and therefore your good thing is bad. And whereas, you know, let's say people on the right are like, the evil you're doing is not the same as the evil I'm doing. It's still evil though, right? Yeah, it's evil. Oh, cool. Right? So like, I see this so many times where people will be bringing light to some sort of activity that they're doing, and somebody else goes, well, you're ignoring this thing. But that's their joy. And I think that was another part, is that it should bring us joy. So everybody who's doing their good things that bring them joy doesn't mean that they necessarily have to do your good thing.
Hi, I'm Shayla, she, her. This was a wonderful talk. I really enjoyed it. I always think about this. There's always so many like little things you could do. And that's, I think, a good way to look at it is like, what can you do, a little thing? Let's say you're going to order from DoorDash, which is expensive, but if you can afford to order from DoorDash, you can give like a $10 or $20 tip. Same with at a restaurant. You know, think about it. That really helps the people that are serving, and you know, it makes a difference. Like little difference, little effort on your part, you know, can make a big difference for them. Same thing with a lot of times there's people at WES who need a meal. You could either make it or order it if you can. And there's other things like mutual aid. People are providing groceries to their neighbors. If you could just chip in $5 or $10 per month, that would really make the pot bigger for everyone to share. So just some thoughts.
And my name is Peter, he, his, him. Thank you, Hugh, for a wonderful, wonderful talk. There was one point there that really struck me, because as a religious humanist, I understand the importance in a religious denomination like us to be talking about subjective living, okay? And so the one point that really struck me, Hugh, was this whole point about ethical energy. And the minute you said it, I could just feel it within myself, because there have been times when I have been able to tap into my own ethical energy, but then there have been other times when it has been difficult. So thank you very much, Hugh.
Hi, I'm Pam, she, her. Sort of following up on that, I just know that the things that I have been involved with here at WES, which also include COAMAT and El Rodeo, that's where I get my energy. I mean, the whole relationship piece with teens and then with the people in El Rodeo, and there's been things here too, but programs like that just really have, for me as an adult, have just really given me that ethical energy. So I really appreciate that.
This is a very tall microphone. Hi, Caleb. I'll tell you later. But I just like to say thank you about the whole that whole part about how divided some of our ethical communities can be. And I've definitely noticed that too. Same with my mother over there. In fact, I think we had the same idea of what we were going to say, but I just want to say it again. Yeah, I've noticed it a lot of people just getting so caught up with their own things and with themselves to notice that they've pretty much pushed everyone else's ideas out of the way to the point where people become sour and bitter. Yeah, thank you.
You all who shared your thoughts and attention. Just as we share our perspectives in this community, so too do we share our resources and gifts. So here at WES, we split all undesignated gifts in the Sunday collection between our operating budget and a fund dedicated to justice and compassion. During the month of October, we are pleased to support Solutions in Hometown Connections. Here to tell us more is Director of Operations and co-founder Kate Talbot.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. This is my first time here, and I have to say it has been a wonderful experience. And Hugh, thank you so much for your words. Many of the things you said resonate with me as someone who is living and breathing Solutions and Hometown Connections as a co-founder. And it fills me with that ethical energy every day. So starting over is hard. It's especially hard for refugees who have left their homes, their family, everything they know to begin new lives here in the United States. Just 10 miles from where we are today is a community of refugees living in an apartment complex, hundreds of families who are doing just that, beginning that hard work of rebuilding. And there are many more families throughout Prince George's County and Montgomery County. The organization that I'm with, Solutions and Hometown Connections, provides those newcomers with the skills and the confidence to go out and be able to access all the resources and opportunities and services that we, as longtime residents, know about already. When individuals join our programs, they are warmly welcomed by what we call our SHC family. That's our staff, our ESL teachers, and our 60 volunteer tutors. It helps that foster that sense of belonging that so many people have lost or searching for. We were founded in 2017 by a group of community volunteers who had been working in the refugee community and noticed a particular gap in services for women and their young preschool-age children who were at risk of social isolation. The reason they were so vulnerable is they were no longer surrounded by the community of family and friends who had once been in their home countries. And furthermore, having moved to the United States, unlike heads of household who become employed, children who become enrolled in schools, there is no natural, immersive, linguistic or cultural path for these women. And what we found and what we heard was that they were being really literally and figuratively left behind at home, not getting out into their new communities and not embracing or not knowing how to participate in their communities. But our programs fill these gaps with important services and training, the largest of which is English language learning. A third of our students report never having attended any kind of formal education. And I don't say that as that's not a deficit or a detraction from them. It's just they've never had the opportunity. I can tell you these are smart women. They are excited to learn, and they love having the opportunity. We enroll 360 predominantly women every 10-week session. 86% show gains in English language learning, which bolsters our confidence, bolsters their confidence. We also have in-person programming called Welcome Workshops, where on average 50 women come. We have a mobile classroom, and we talk about like cultural and sort of social norms. We give sort of lessons in things, everything from what is that beeping sound that ultimately is a smoke detector and how to change the batteries, to personal space. Just those little things that you're not going to necessarily learn right off the bat. We also have a preschool where we have 22 children enrolled. They develop the kindergarten and pre-K readiness, so they're ready to go to school when their time has come. Since 2020, we've assisted over 2,000 individuals through our programming. And the outcomes are people who are engaging and starting to thrive in their community. Our programs are bridges from the isolation of the home into the greater community. And we know that our communities are better when people are seen, when people are heard from different backgrounds and different cultures. That makes us stronger and more vibrant and just strengthens our communities overall. I just want to say thank you for including our organization in the Share the Plate initiative this month. It means so much to us. We're a small but growing organization, and we really appreciate the assistance. So thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And we also have some little handouts over at the welcome table, and I'm happy to speak to anyone after the service who wants to learn more, maybe wants to volunteer, or just kind of hear more of our story. So thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Kate. For folks interested in learning more, you can visit shconnections.org. And again, those handouts are here in person for people to take. And let's all take a moment to prepare to respond to the invitation to generosity as we are able to donate online through the simple give system. Text an amount to 202-335-1885 or go to tiny.cc/wesgives. or click on Give on our website, ethicalsociety.org. To donate in person today, you just place cash or check in the basket at the back of the hall on your way out, and you can always send a check by mail. Thank you for your generosity. We'll now receive your gifts and the gift of music from the WES Chorus and Band.
We now must part. Where are we now? Your hands and voices fill my heart.
Thank you so much to the many people who helped to create this morning's time together. Today's platform speaker, Hugh Taft-Morales, and our awesome WES chorus and band. Senior leader Casey Slack and staff members Nadara Miles, Robin Kravitz, and Maceo Thomas. And of course, our platform production volunteers, the tech team members, slide artists, Zoom chat usher, and in-person greeters. We have a couple of announcements on various things happening in the WES community, which you can also find on our website and our news and notes. So, okay, putting on my Community Relations Committee hat, metaphorically, our CRC series kicks off this afternoon in the social hall with a session addressing fear and how we cannot let fear and disconnect and disengage us from the rest of society. We also on Zoom today have our sci-fi book club at 1:30 and mental health support group at 2 p.m. Next week, the Sunday program is part of the All Society, so All American Ethical Union will join together on Zoom, and we'll have more details on that in the coming week. And then coming up November 12th will be our Stone Soup. You hopefully have received the message looking for volunteers and the details, and check again this week for more on that. Okay, now putting on my auction hat. Our board was sharing these antennas in our previous member meeting, so hopefully you've gotten the hint by now that our theme is out of this world. Sci-fi, aliens, cosmic, whatever. Feel free to dress up as your favorite character or imaginary character. So please come join us for auction November 18th. We're going to have it both live here at WES as well as on Zoom with silent and live auction items. We've got a wonderful menu of food, desserts, drinks for those joining us in person, and childcare, so the whole family can come. Tickets are currently open and available. Feel free to ask for assistance if you need some tech support. We are also collecting donation items, so small things that can go into an amazing basket, bigger things that are going to get us lots of money, experiences, dinners, drinks, anything. We would love to have it to make it a fuller event. So again, that's November 18th. And the website is available on the website, on the WES website. That is it for announcements today. So as always, you can find information about opportunities to connect in the weekly news and notes email and on the calendar page at ethicalsociety.org. Again, if you are new to our community, please introduce yourself in person or via connection form at tiny.cc/wesconnects or an email to membership@ethicalsociety.org. At the conclusion of the platform, please join us for social hour. We're going to have it both here in person as well as on Zoom. You can go to tiny.cc/wescoffeehour. And I now invite you to join in our closing sing-along and closing words.
Hopefully this song is starting to feel a little more familiar to you. I'm
And now our closing words. Let us go into the week ahead with compassion, understanding, and commitment, remembering where we come from, honoring the past of immigrants who are our friends, family, and neighbors, and working for a world where we love and justice cross all borders. Thank you all for joining us for today's platform, in person or remotely. We look forward to connecting with you again soon.